All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Purpose and Pixie Dust podcast. I am super excited today to have a special guest on, Amy Schultz. And Amy, tell us a little bit about you. What is your business? How did you get to your business? Because I feel like there's always some kind of a story there, some sort of pivot, something that led you there. And just tell us all the things.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. Yes, I will give you my money story because that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So right now I'm co-founder and head coach at a company called Bolder Money, and we are on a mission to close the gender wealth gap. We do that through accessible and compassionate money coaching for women. That is not how my career started at all. I started out about over 10 years ago now as an actuary. So I was doing wealth management, wealth consulting for HR firms. And I was always the breadwinner in my family. I always worked like 70-hour weeks. I was very much like in the corporate world. And like that was just a part of who I was trying to like advance. I would take a bunch of exams to try to get promotions. And so I earned a really good amount of money before I decided to start my business. But when I had my first son, this was in 2017, I had was still working full time. I had $30,000 in credit card debt. I had $50,000 in student loan debt, and I had absolutely no savings other than my 401k, and like had no idea what that balance was at the time. My degree is in mathematical economics and finance, and I'm married to an accountant. So like we should have figured it all out, if it were that easy, if it was just a matter of financial literacy, right? So I go in to have my son, and I'm like, oh, okay, obviously we didn't prepare enough. Obviously we're not financially ready to have a baby, but I'm just going to go back to work and I'm going to change it around. I'm going to like work a lot extra hours, like maybe start a side hustle, like earn it all back, right? Instead, I went in to have him, and I ended up spending the first day of his life on life support. It was a really traumatic delivery. It was, we were like miracle. We're a miracle family. We both survived. He's great. But everything about me changed. I no longer wanted to work for somebody. I no longer wanted to work like, 9 to 5 every day. I was just like, I felt so stuck. And I couldn't take the time off that I wanted. I had this big dramatic life change that I needed to recover from. I had PTSD, and I just couldn't take time off because I didn't have the money. So I decided to research this problem like crazy, and like, how did I get here, right? And what I found was that I'm nowhere near being alone, that there's so many women out there who earn a good amount of money and are ashamed of their financial situations or haven't known who to ask about it. And so maybe they have credit card debt. Maybe they haven't been able to save a lot of money. And so they're not prepared for whatever comes next. So as soon as I realized like the magnitude of this problem, I emptied my 401k, and I started my first business coaching women to improve their financial lives, which is not how I recommend when anybody does it. Don't empty your 401k. But that, I felt stuck, and I felt like I know now what I want to do with my life, and I'm just going to do it. So I started building my first business that was private money coaching. What I discovered was that it was, the only way that I could really increase my revenue was by increasing my prices and maybe the number of clients that I could take on. But I was a new mom, so I couldn't take on that much. And so I was kind of becoming a part of the problem that I had experienced in the first place, which is that people feel like they don't have financial help to go to because it's pricey or because they have to be at a certain asset level in order for a financial advisor to work with them. So when I met my co-founder, we started talking about really making a program that brought the human aspect of money coaching, but made it affordable for people so that they could work with a coach and so that they could have that same level of personalized guidance while also like not spending $1 million on it. So at that point, I transitioned from my first business to co-founding Bolder Money. And this was in about 2021. And so we've just been on a journey. We are a venture-backed company. So we are one of the only, I think, 11% of companies that have a female founder who get venture capital. And we're getting ready for another fundraising round. Our team has grown by at least double, maybe triple in the past year. And it's just been amazing. And it's all because there are so many women who are wanting to make changes in their lives, and money has been the thing that's holding them back. And that's like our whole mission is let's figure out what you want to do, and then let's figure out how to use your money to get there.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Just like so much about your story, I know is going to resonate with so many people. Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like I have heard bits of, I mean, not obviously the type of business that you started, but those fears and those feelings that you had of like feeling stuck or feeling trapped or not really sure, or like I make a substantial amount of money, where is it all going?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know so many people who can resonate with that. So when you first started talking, you said you specifically work with women because of that that gap between women and men. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So most people are mildly aware of the gender pay gap, which is that women on average earn 82 cents for every dollar that a man earns. This gets much worse for women of color, for women in the LGBTQ community. And what we don't often hear about is the wealth gap, which is unfortunately much, much worse. So the wealth gap means what women own. So their net worth, assets minus liabilities. That number is 32 cents compared to every dollar that men own. I know. I get like, every time I say it, I get like ragey about it because it's so bad.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
So what it means is that, yes, there's a pay gap, but it's more than just about earning more money. It's about what are you doing with your money. And so a lot of times we have women who are they're managing finances for their household. So they're more focused on the day-to-day finances instead of saving, instead of building up money. So there's a lot to be said about habits and the way that we interact with money that we have to change. There's also, in general, our society paints women as not the powerful money managers that they actually are. So a lot of women maybe they didn't grow up seeing their mothers make the best financial choices. Maybe they didn't even see their parents talk about money. They just had no idea how it was made. So that's what we call the money story. That's kind of like your background with money. And that differs very much by culture and also by men and women, depending on what they've seen about their gender growing up with money.
Okay, that makes total sense. And I love how you brought up that with the wealth gap. Like I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that number. I mean, it makes sense.
I know.
It makes sense. I just had never really thought of that before.
Yeah.
So how do you even get started, you know, with maybe in your programs, like with your clients? Like, so do you start with the money story and that's where you start making some changes, or how does that even look?
Yeah, so we get started by talking about what they really want, because a lot of times people will come to us and they'll say, I want to learn about investing, or I want to earn more money. And we're like, we really need to get a solid why for you. Like it sounds cheesy, but we need to know what it is that you're working towards. And we need to be able to connect to your future self. Science has actually proven that when you do that, when you think about your future self as somebody that you are today, so as yourself, like living the life that you want, the person who's achieved the things you want to achieve, you're more likely to take the small steps that get you there. So we try to get people into that motivation mindset first. And then from there, we are doing two things. We're looking at their finances as a whole. So all of their assets, all of their debt, all of their spending, to see what's going on. And yes, we're starting with the money story, because two people could have the exact same financial situation, but how they manage it going forward will completely rely on their money story. They could be earning the same amount, and one of them could have, for example, maybe they grew up in poverty, and so they're used to that like feast or famine cycle with money. So they're not good at saving money because they never saw anybody who really like held on to their money. There just never seemed like it was enough. So two people that earn the same amount of money could have very different ways of relating to money, and the way that we coach them and help them maybe needs to be very different. If we say one thing to one person, it might come across as like an attack, or that they might feel shame, which is never our intention. So we want to know where they're coming from so that we can coach them with compassion and make it as comfortable as possible for them.
That makes total sense, and I love that. Now you mentioned debt, and I feel like what I have always thought of debt and what I have heard of other people refer to debt is like almost two different things. Is there debt that is better or more
Mm.
okay for someone to have? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So debt is so yes and no. So I say yes because obviously if you have one debt that's like it's credit card debt, and so that means it has like a 25% interest rate. That means that every month on top of that balance that you paid, it's growing at 2% or whatever when you look at the monthly rate. Whereas if you have debt that is a mortgage and maybe your interest rate is like 4 or 5%, that's not going to cost you as much money over time. Also, having debt in a car or a mortgage or something, it's an investment, right? Because you have a value with that. Whereas with credit cards, it's literally just accruing a balance over time. So in that sense, when we focus on people and paying off debt, we focus on the credit card debt first, right? Getting rid of that. Versus some of the other debt, we're like, okay, that's not causing that much damage. But what's important to remember is that in our society, a lot of financial experts are like, they make people feel so bad about having debt to the point where then they don't want to get help because they don't want to talk about what debt they have. And they feel so bad about themselves that they're like throwing all their money at this debt. And so they're staying in the debt cycle because they're not saving, because they end up feeling like they don't even deserve to have money because they have this debt. So the way that we talk about debt at Boulders is different. We try to avoid saying like good debt or bad debt. Instead, we try to say like, which debt is really weighing on you that we want to get rid of first. And we try to let people see like, if you have a lot of credit card debt to pay off, yes, we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out a plan to pay it off as soon as possible. But that doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy your life. Like, you don't have to punish yourself for the rest of your life because you have this credit card debt.
That's what I was kind of wondering. So do you have and it's probably not set, I'm sure it probably depends person to person, but a recommendation on paying off debt versus saving money and
Yeah.
and how to balance that out?
Yeah. So we definitely do both. A lot of people, when they come things, because again they've been throwing all their money at their debt, and so we're like, okay, first of all, it feels bad because you're still just like giving your money away, so we want to get used to holding on to the money. And then also when something inevitably comes up, like a car repair or something, they're using the debt again. So that's where it's in that cycle. It feels like they're never going to get out of it. So what we do is have them work on, still pay the minimums on your debt while you build up a rainy day fund. And a rainy day fund is usually around $2,000 or $3,000. It's good to have like 1 month of expenses. But if you're starting from nothing with savings, $2,000 to have that in the bank is amazing, right? It just feels different. So that's what we work with. And then once we do that, we can work on other savings goals, like an emergency fund, which is a longer term savings that's for like if you lose your job, if you lose your income. And so that should be 3 to 6 months of earnings. And that should be a little farther away. So like you don't need the money necessarily within a day, but it's there in case you lose your job, or if you want to leave your job, which I'll talk about too. And they work on that at the same time. So we look at where their money is going to try to figure out, we want to pay more to the debt than the minimum, but what's the balance so that we can do that while also teaching them to save so that they can do the things they want to do.
Okay, before we talk about the leaving your job, not losing, losing or leaving, I guess, could be either one.
Yes.
Yeah, either way. What are some simple tips that someone listening to this right now could do to start saving if they're
Yeah.
not good at saving their money?
Yeah. So the first thing you could do is make sure that you have your basic savings account connected to your checking account. And you want to start building up $2,000 in it. If that feels really hard for you, that's okay. Start with $25 or $50 every paycheck. As soon as you get paid, move that money into that account. If that feels hard for you, I want you to look at where your spending is going. Like, if you look at the past 2 months, see where things are going. That exercise in itself is fine. We find hundreds of dollars for our clients doing that every month going forward because they just don't realize a lot of times where their money is going. So definitely do that and work on, can I put, $50 a month into my rainy day fund and build it up? Can I do it even faster? It's okay to start small, but you want to like ease into that and really like work that muscle of like, I want to have money to set aside. The high yield savings account is something that's really important for everybody to have for the emergency fund. So that can be something like Ally, ALLY. They have really good no fees, no minimums online savings account. A Marcus account by Goldman Sachs or Capital One 360. It's a little bit higher than, or I should say a lot higher than a basic savings account, but it's going to have like a 3 or 4% interest rate. It's not money. The emergency fund is not meant to be invested. It's not meant to grow. It's just meant to be there for security, but you can put it in a high yield account so that it does grow more than a basic savings.
So once women start to have the appropriate amount of money in these two accounts, then is that when you recommend the investment account or something that is getting a little bit higher return on your investment?
Yes, for sure. What we've seen is that people want to start getting invested right away or start investing right away. And so we start out with small amounts while we're building those other accounts. We want all women to like start investing today. If you're not, take $20, start putting it in every month. Or make sure that you're maximizing your retirement benefits if you have them. But it's okay to start small with that while you focus on the other funds. But when you have that emergency fund, you're able to make choices from the place of what do I want to do with my life instead of what I have to do. And that's priceless. So we can't stress that enough. It's the difference between staying in a job you hate, staying in a bad relationship. It really is the thing that helps women feel more empowered and more in control of their lives.
I was just going to say that it's very powerful, I'm sure, to have that feeling. Yeah. Okay. So for the woman listening to this who would like to leave their job to do their own thing, to be an entrepreneur, what kind of a timeline or what should she be kind of preparing mentally right now to do?
Yeah. It's funny because I looked at this so much after like I took I'm a very risk tolerant person when it comes to business. So like having a startup where you're going after funding, it's very risky. It's not, especially doing it like one business to the next. Emptying your 401k, not great. So now what we always say to people is have we talk about the emergency fund being 3 to 6 months. You really want that to be closer to 6 months before you leave your full-time job. And that's because we always underestimate the time that it takes to build a business and the money that it takes to put into a business to get it where you want to be. The other thing that I say is to make sure that you get really good at projecting your income. So something that new business owners really struggle with when they're looking to take their business full time is they're like, how would I have really great months and then I don't. So how do I get that to be consistent enough to be the thing that like supports me? And so it's like you have to be able to plan it out so that your minimum is the amount you can live off of. And then you're using, extra money as it comes in. But sometimes it's about making sure you can plan for that minimum and you know exactly what you need to do in your business. And you have like backup plans. Like if something else falls through, you have another stream of income maybe. So it's really about just being good at planning going forward.
Do you recommend people have more than one stream of income?
I do. I think if you are going to be an entrepreneur and a business owner, there's going to be a point, like usually you start out and there's a lot of work that's put into it. So it's always smart to start thinking about what's something that I can do that's not as active, that's like more passive income. For some people, that means, making a note of, for coaches, for example, making a note of everything they're doing with people and start thinking about turning it into a course. For some people, that might be looking at, in something completely different, like investing in rental properties. The only like real true passive income is investing, which is why it's so important with your business goals to make sure that you are earning enough, like including your goals and what you need to earn, not just your living expenses, but including like, I want to have this set aside for retirement and savings and that kind of thing. It needs to be included in the amount that you need to make every month to support yourself.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I have talked to someone I just had on the podcast pretty recently was saying that she had a set amounts and she left her job and then like her business kind of dipped and she got to the point and then she ended up owing, I feel like, more on her taxes maybe than she had projected. And it was just like kind of like an old crap moment. And it ended up working out fine because she, it's kind of like lit the fire under her to do things. But yeah, I think that 6 months, I was even thinking you were going to say closer to a year. And
I guess it depends on, it depends on the business. I think my co-founder had done like 18 months or something when he had like
Okay.
we were like the opposite. Like he had planned it all out. And so I think it really just depends on like, what is your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that savings is huge because there's surprises. Like you, for the
Right.
first time, might be paying for your own health care, that like you had to go to the
Yeah.
marketplace or something because you're no longer on corporate benefits, or you might suddenly realize that you had been contributing to retirement and now I have to contribute to that separately. Yeah, you might have a dip in your business and a training might come up that you want to pay for. I think it's important to include in that like emergency fund, that runway, to think about what are the things that I'm going to want to invest in my business to help it grow. I remember investing a lot in like client attraction programs and like marketing and that kind of thing, because it wasn't something that I had ever learned before. So I was like, I know this is something I'm going to want to invest in, but it wasn't cheap. And so that, had I planned well, that would have been included in my initial cost.
Oh, that's so smart. Yeah. That's why I was just thinking all the things, because I'm doing my taxes right now. So I'm like tallying up all my cost, that I've invested in. And I'm like, it can get pretty high,
Yes.
especially at the beginning stages of your business, because you're investing a lot in training. Like you said, coaches, conferences, all those. And it's really hard for me to say no to those things. So.
I know. Oh, it almost gets like addicting because of the growth that you experience as a person when you do that.
Yeah.
At one point I had like 3 or 4 coaches and I was kind of like, is this good?
Like, you're like, at some point I've got to stop this.
Yeah.
I got to pick one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what does Boulder Money look like right now? Like what are the different ways that women can work with you guys?
Yeah. So we have a free community. It's just bouldermoney.com/community. And we do free master classes in there that our coaches lead, that are around things like money and marriage, things like how to invest in rental properties, how to get out of debt. So that's where we have a lot of free content. We have our paid coaching membership, where you sign up to work with a coach one-on-one. And most of it is done through text message. So you have quarterly calls with your coach. And then we have a step-by-step process that we walk you through to get really organized, to set your goals, and then to figure out how you're going to get from A to B by creating a monthly spending plan for you. Your coach, we talked about the money story. So they also look at the emotional side of what's going on with your relationship with money and what needs to shift there. So that is as low as $49 a month, depending on the program length that they sign up for. And so from there we have group coaching sessions that we run for the paid coaching members, where we do deeper dives into the mindset work. We just had one today about financial boundaries. So setting boundaries at home and at work. So we really try to give like a holistic support system for the women that enter our program.
I love that. Those financial boundaries. I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm like, I need some financial
Sometimes they're with yourself too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a spender. So mine are always with myself. Like what boundaries do I need to reset?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love too, though, how your business model is tiered in different ways like that too. So that you have, some of that more passive stuff, and then you have, the more one-on-one. I think that's a great business model to model for your, for your clients who are in business, especially.
Yeah.
Because that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. And I did, for the coaches out there, I did private coaching for a long time. It was very fulfilling, very rewarding. I do miss it sometimes doing more of that. But as I switched into studying group coaching and doing more around that, like the power of that and the ability to really scale that is something that I think everybody should consider who has like a one-to-one business, because when you get people together, they are so much more motivated. They do feed off of each other. It's actually less work for you, and it can really build your business up a lot. So yeah, just something to throw out there. Like, don't be afraid to pivot and try something new.
Yeah. I was just thinking in the car on the way home today, I usually run a couple 8 to 12 week small group coaching programs. And I'm like, I feel like it might be time for me to start one up again. Cause it is, they're a lot of fun. And I do love the energy, and it's almost like when you're in a mastermind where you hear, someone's answer to something else and you're like, oh, I actually have that problem too. That's so interesting. So there's some stuff that can come up that way that I think some people will look at it and be like, I have to do one-on-one, which I do think there's a place for one-on-one also.
Right, for sure.
But that group coaching is a really smart business model too.
Yeah. And we do a lot of like studying our clients and seeing what are the patterns so that then we can build out DIY programs too, which we're working on, so that if there's somebody where they are earning $75,000 a year and they have $10,000 in credit card debt and they're a single mom, like we know pretty well how to help them step by step. So there's a a $15 program that needs to be built, because there's people that that's the price point that they would feel comfortable paying, and then they can still get the benefit of it. But I think having a group allows you to just like study more people at once too.
Yeah, that's so smart. Yeah, I use that as what do they call it? Oh my gosh, I can't think of
like a focus group or like beta testing.
Yeah, like the beta testing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one last tip for the woman who's listening to this and she's like, okay, I'm going to get started and I'm going to take control of my finances.
Yeah.
What is one thing that she can do tonight to move forward in that?
So this is so important. So look at your calendar, look at your upcoming paydays, add an event on your calendar, and in the description or in the event, you'll title money date, make it like recurring for your paydays. In the description, write, am I moving my money to build the life that I want? And when that payday comes up, when your paycheck comes in, think about, do I need to buy this or that, or should I move this money into my runway so that I can take my business full time? Having that reminder on the calendar is really important. It's similar to having like a coach who's holding you accountable. So in this way, you're kind of like, a couple of weeks might go by and you might forget about this podcast interview, or you might forget about the little steps, but then every 2 weeks you have that on your calendar so you can be reminded, oh yeah, I need to add a little bit to savings, or I need to leave work early tomorrow so I can work on my business, or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. That's so powerful. Amy, this was so good. Everyone needs to save this episode and re-listen to it every time you need a little kick in the pants in regards to your finances, or a little reminder. And I just really love your mission. I love that you're doing this. I love that you are specifically helping women, because, together we can all rise and bring each other up.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you? You kind of said already, but just give us a little quick reminder. Yeah. Where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? And where can they find your programs?
Yeah. So head to bouldermoney.com. You'll find the community there. You'll find our coaches list there. So you can actually pick your coach and sign up. Okay. And then we're on Instagram at boulder.money. I'm on Instagram at Amy Schultz Money Coach. I post money tips. I also post like silly things about my life. So you can find me there. But yeah, bouldermoney.com is the best place to start. You can take a quiz on there that can give you some tips and ideas of things to start. And then I hope to hear from some of these entrepreneurs out there, because we love working with entrepreneurs. It's just like a different energy. It's exciting.
Yeah. And I feel like there's probably a lot of potential there too, because they're having this income coming in from their business, and like, let's do some big things with it.
Right. For sure.
Awesome. Well, everyone go over, find Amy, follow Boulder Money, check out their community. I know I'm getting ready to head there right now as soon as we get off of here. And Amy, again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lindsay.